Good evening, Mayor Treese, City Council members, and the City Manager, Mike Mathis, City staff and co-workers, and the community. Glenn and I have been asked again to give an update on the strategic plan for this past year. We have the privilege of working with each of you and with the city staff and the community every day. Many of you, especially the council members, have had some interesting sacrifices that you've made in some of our meetings. Glenn and I watch closely, and you have been on the hot seat many times, and the overarching factor that keeps you returning and having that positive attitude, we believe, is your desire to make Columbia the best place to live for all our people. We want to thank you for that sacrifice and the support in helping with the strategic plan. Columbia has always been a place of learning and academia, and we've learned a lot this year. The activated strategic plan is nothing less than premeditated progress. It's caused an epidemic of kindness, and that permeates every facet of our lives in Columbia. Columbia is that city on a hill that cannot be hidden. Tonight, Glenn and I want to share a few stories. We've changed the names. I didn't change Glenn's name because he isn't innocent, but we changed the names of everybody else. Last year, many of the staff helped support the Destiny of Hope annual harvest dinner. The night before the dinner had been the first really cold snap of weather, and many homeless came to the dinner and received not only a hot meal, but many received sleeping bags that city staff and other volunteers went out and bought with their own money. One such woman was Sarah, and she was very thankful for the extra warmth that night. 3 weeks later, Glenn and Stephanie, a lady from housing, and myself were leaving a meeting at the MU Impact Center. We got out onto a dark, cold parking lot, and we saw this woman, and we barely recognized her. It was Sarah, but she was so frail and only had on a sweatshirt, pants, and a thin blanket wrapped around her. She was frantically looking for her sleeping bag that she had hidden in the bushes. She had had a procedure done at the hospital that day on her heart. They released her, and the only shelter she had was that sleeping bag. So we put her in the car, and Stephanie and I only had $42, but we went to the nearest motel, and we smacked the money down on the counter, told the manager what Sarah's plight was, and without a beat, the assistant manager said he would cover the rest of the room, and Sarah had a safe and warm place to sleep that night. So we tucked her in bed, and she was in safety for that night. And she is still walking around our streets and managing her life. Glenn and I pass out flyers for the strategic plan meetings. That takes a lot of time, so we've figured out where are the best places to go. And it's the liquor stores, because a lot of people come there. And so one Friday morning on about 11 o'clock, we went to the liquor store to hand out flyers, and this young man came zooming up in a borrowed car. It was a young man, I'll call him Daryl, that Glenn had worked with for a while. He was 25 years old. He was a young black man. He was an ex-felon. He was also a father of 4, a husband, and a working poor man. He got out of the car. We could tell he was terribly distressed, and with tears running down his cheeks, which if you've ever been in the game or ever been in prison, you don't let anybody see you cry. But his back was His back was against the wall. He said, I have no one to help me. I have no family here, and I am desperate. We got him into his car. We got him to talking about what had happened. He had managed to get a second job, but he still needed a pair of black rubber-soled shoes, and he needed money to go to a family funeral the next week, and it was a very close family member to him. We assured him that we would be his family, and that there was definitely a pair of black rubber-soled shoes with his name on them. So by 4 o'clock that afternoon, he had the shoes, he had groceries, and he had hope. He went to the family funeral the next week with all of his family. What was the cost of giving this young man hope? It was a pair of $27 shoes and a tank of gas. We want to share with you about a police officer who was one of the first ones on the scene where a young black man had been shot by another young man. He was bleeding profusely, and he wouldn't make it until the paramedics arrived. The officer offered words of comfort, and then he took his hand and he pressed it into the open wound and kept the young man from bleeding until the ambulance got there. The young man lived because of this officer. Columbia's officers, firemen, and paramedics are in the business of saving lives, not taking them. What was the cost of this young man's life? A few life-giving minutes of active compassion. Strong Indigenous leadership has risen to a new level in the three strategic areas. Stacy, Sophia, Marcel, Tori, and other dedicated citizens have come to the forefront. They give us a common bond when we work together on the strategic plan, and we become repairers of the streets we dwell in. When we, as individuals, as a city, a community, yield to this epidemic of kindness, fueled by the strategic plan, immediate individual and family needs are met. Over time, these repeated acts heal the human spirit, heal the deep woundedness of our most vulnerable brothers and sisters. And these same brothers and sisters that are healed, they rise up in hope, and we embrace their giftedness that has been suppressed for such a long time. Columbia is that city on a hill that cannot be hidden, whose light is there for all to see. Thank you.